America, well, it is on strike. Three major unions in the United States on picket lines driven by demands for higher wages and increased transparency. This is upending expectations in the power dynamic between workers and employers. Joining us right now is Joanne Lipman, Yale University lecturer and a CNBC contributor. Joanne, we've been talking all morning, and frankly, for many weeks, if not months now, about this sort of shift in power as it relates to workers. And we were just talking as it was about what's happening in the economy and, frankly, how workers have not kept up with the rate of inflation and therefore are now asking for more. The question I think we're all trying to get to is what does an equilibrium look like? Are we going to be seeing many, many more strikes like this? Do you see this as an idiosyncratic issue?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I do not see this as an idiosyncratic issue. I actually think we are at an inflection point right now, looking at the future of work. And it's not just about the wages, though you are correct that there's this widening gap between those at the top and the rest of workers. And we've seen it with the UAW, for example. We know that on an inflation-adjusted basis, those workers are actually seeing a decline, and they're looking at the CEOs who have had a 40% increase since the financial crisis, who are all making over $20 million a year. But I think the bigger picture here, and this is really important, is about the future of work. And that has to do with the compensation, but it also has to do with the working hours, with what does the work week look like, what are expectations from work? And this all comes out of COVID, frankly. You've got a combination of coming out of the pandemic where office workers who had remote and hybrid opportunities are now being called back to the office, and they're saying, wait a second, they're rebelling against it. They don't want to be back in 5 days a week. You've got that combined with this tight labor market, which means employees have the upper hand. So there is a rebalancing, I think, of the workplace. And I do think it is a larger inflection point than simply the previous years where we have seen workers go on strike simply for wages.
And so that's the other question, which is in this grand bargain or negotiation between the issue of money versus time, how does that play itself out? And which do you think ultimately becomes more important? This is my own take. I think people still want money even more than the time, but maybe I'm wrong. Well,
right now, people want both. And because the market is tight, they are in more of a position to bargain for both. But I just want to point out one thing. Just let's look, for example, at the 4-day work week idea. And we see a ton of eye rolling with the auto workers who are asking for this 4-day work week. But, you know, in truth, we should take it a little bit more seriously when you look at the research that's been done, right? There's been research first in Iceland, then in the UK, then globally on looking at 4-day work weeks elsewhere. And they have found that productivity has remained the same. Employee happiness has skyrocketed. Employee mental health has improved as well. So, you know, I do think we're going to have to rethink how we look at time in the office. I was looking, I wrote recently my book, Next. And one of the things that I was looking at was sort of the historical overview of how we view work. And we're coming up on the 100th anniversary of Henry Ford rolling back the work week to 5 days. And at that time, that was considered radical, to roll it back from 6 or 7 days to 5. So I think we are at another sort of historical moment here where everything's on the table. I mean, face it, look, if we were to create the workplace from scratch today, I don't think it would look anything like 5 days, 40 hours a week on the premises. But we just haven't figured out what comes next. And that's part of all of the unrest that we're seeing.
So you say that, but then there are other leaders of businesses who are obviously pushing for 5 days, and they want to go back to where we were before. Do you think they're just not up to date with what's going on? Or do you think they're trying to hold on to something because of, we've talked about real estate costs and all sorts of other things? Or do you think that they genuinely believe that this is actually the structure that we've set is the way to do it?
I do think that we're going to have individualized solutions. I don't think there is any one-size-fits-all solution for all industries right now. It depends on your industry, your company, even your department within your company, and also geographically. There are some areas where people are more likely to want to go back into the office. And there's also, some demographics for whom either in the office or remote is going to be more of a positive. For example, in terms of remote and hybrid work, we know that you get a larger pool of applicants for those kinds of jobs. You have a larger pool that includes more women, more people of color, more people who are physically or otherwise disabled, who are able to take advantage of those opportunities. And by the way, you see it in the numbers. You were just talking with the Fed. You see it in the numbers, in the employment figures. If you look starting in April, we had the largest percentage of women participating in the workforce, women of childbearing age, as we say, participating in the workforce historically. And that was April, May, June, every single month. And why do we think that is? It's because you have the opportunity for remote or hybrid work at the same time as you had the rollback of restrictions from COVID, which meant the kids could go back to school or daycare. So, for those people, they want remote. For others, young people who are, people who are crammed in, 5 to a 1-bedroom apartment, right? They want to get out, and younger people do need to be on the premises to get that kind of hearing and culture.